This is Prime Crime Network.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Wilson Wesley Chavis, and he is also identified in court documents as the owner of Compassion and Serenity Funeral Home. He's now facing charges that include first and second degree murder. Witnesses told us shots rang out at around the time family and friends were called to gather around the casket. Well, police said that at the cemetery, Chavis allegedly confronted two people with another funeral service, one of them the pastor there yesterday. Attendees then confronted him for disrespecting the family.
A D.C. mother was trying to bury her 10-year-old daughter after a shooting killed the child on Mother's Day. But a deadly shooting carried out by the funeral home owner interrupted her burial service. As the burial ceremony was getting underway in Suitland, Maryland, the owner of the funeral home providing burial service clashed with two people affiliated with a second funeral home with whom he had a long-standing business dispute. It was said that Wilson Chavis yelled that, "I own this body," then spit on the preacher, so says the grieving mother. Several attendees of the burial confronted Chavis. It was said that he tripped over the lid of the casket and fell at the burial site. I'm assuming that he was angry, so he pulled out a pistol and fired 2 shots and drove away from the cemetery. Minutes later, police pulled him over and took him into custody. Ronald Stephen Banks of D.C. died after the shooting. He was just 30 years of age and had served as a pallbearer for the little angel, Arianna Davis. He was a close friend of the family and had intervened when the argument broke out between Chavis and the other funeral home. And an adult cousin of Arianna Davis was also shot and wounded in her leg. The preacher, who was Davis's uncle, was not injured.
This is not normal. We need justice for this baby. I'm going to say that whoever did it didn't mean to do it. But, bro, you slipped up, and you got to pay for it.
Antoinette Belt, Arianna Davis's mother, said the argument between Chavis and the people from the rival funeral home had nothing to do with her and her family. Chavis, by the way, is a 48-year-old man from Hughesville, Maryland. He was charged with first-degree and second-degree murder, attempted first- and second-degree murder, and some related other charges, so says the authorities. But little Arianna Davis was a fun-loving little girl that died after a bullet fired during a barrage of gunfire flew through her family's car as they drove through Northeast D.C. on May 14th. She and her parents, along with her 2 siblings, had been headed home as they celebrated Mother's Day.
First tonight, a
Prime Crime Network.
exclusive.
This is not normal.
Pastor Jody Fletcher has presided over funerals, but not one like this. The life he and others honor at the Temple of Praise Church is Fletcher's 10-year-old niece, Arianna Davis.
We need justice for this baby.
Davis was shot back on May 14th along Hay Street Northeast. She and her family drove home after a Mother's Day celebration.
I'm going to say that whoever did it didn't mean to do it. But, bro, you slipped up, and you got to pay for it.
Arianna died 3 days later from her injuries. Tears filled the church Tuesday, along with T-shirts that bear the child's face as a tribute.
I'm angry because we walking around with T-shirts with this baby face on it. And her life is worth more than a T-shirt.
Fletcher is not the only relative to speak at the service. So did Davis's young cousin, Michaela Freeman.
Let us remember a beautiful soul we lost, the laughter and the dreams that radiate from her young spirit. May our beautiful angel rest in peace, knowing that her spirit lives within us, guiding us towards a future where such of violence are nothing but a distant memory.
The family said it will finally have some sense of peace once the person who took this young life is found.
First tonight, a
Prime Crime Network.
exclusive.
This was a funeral for a 10-year-old who was an innocent bystander in a shooting last month, dies from her injuries a few days later. The funeral service was a beautiful program with a horse-drawn carriage that pulled a purple casket into the cemetery here. The family calling for justice, and as they are trying to mourn this 10-year-old, shots are fired. Now, I've been told by several witnesses an account of what happened. Now, we are holding off on some of this, trying to confirm more with authorities, but what I can tell you is that many witnesses said there was some kind of struggle that broke out between at least two people, as many of the family and supporters were around the 10-year-old's casket. That this shooting had to do with a long-standing business dispute between two different funeral services, and they did announce today that they have arrested and charged the owner of the funeral home that was actually providing yesterday's funeral service for the 10-year-old, 48-year-old Wilson Wesley Chavis, and he is also identified in court documents as the owner of Compassion and Serenity Funeral Home. He's now facing charges that include first and second-degree murder. Witnesses told us shots rang out at around the time family and friends were called to gather around the casket. Well, police said that at the cemetery, Chavis allegedly confronted two people with another funeral service.
Chavis shouted, "This ain't your expletive funeral home."
Attendees then confronted him for disrespecting the family. Chavis backed up, tripped over the concrete vault lid on the ground next to the grave and fell. And as he landed, immediately pulled a pistol from his waistband, allegedly firing one shot that hit the pallbearer. And then he also allegedly fired a second shot as he stood grazing a woman in the arm with a bullet. Now, we've been seeing messages of condolences and prayers. That pallbearer, who we were told yesterday was actually a cousin of the 10-year-old who was being laid to rest yesterday. That person has been identified as 30-year-old Ronald Banks of Southeast D.C.
Arianna's mother tells her that Banks was a good man who had stood by the family since Arianna was killed. She says the woman that was wounded is a cousin. In a brief phone interview this morning, with Arianna's mother said Banks tried to intervene in the dispute when he was killed.
I'm so traumatized that this happened at my daughter's burial site. I didn't even get to lay her down, even to put her in the ground, and another incident happened. This is so traumatizing to me, my children, my whole family.
Antoinette Belk says the violence in the cemetery prevented her from being able to say a final goodbye.
So one of my aunts was at the grave site the whole time, so she was able to see Arianna go in the ground and put dirt over her. And I have pictures to confirm. So I'm very, it's a big relief knowing that my baby is buried.
Thank you for watching Prime Crime Network, your source for urban and suburban and around the world news. Hit the subscribe, like, and the notification bell. And check us out on PrimeCrimeNetwork.com.